Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice, right? Especially when it's used to prove a point, like catching a cheater red-handed. Today on rSpace, pure, unedited adultery. I proved my wife's affair through a voice recorder. I made sure to show her everything that she missed out on. I feel like I might be paranoid, and I hate it. I feel like I know for a fact that my wife is cheating on me, but I just don't have anything to prove it with. She's a 29 female and I'm 29 male, and we've been married for 3 years now. There was never any suspicion of infidelity during the time that we were dating and in the early years of our marriage as well. However, I don't know exactly when everything changed, but it did. I started to notice things that made me very suspicious of her. To be fair, I started to read the posts that others put up here a lot more, and now I feel like it might have made me hyper-aware, even for things that aren't even there. I'll try to explain everything to see you guys' input on this. Her name is Steph, and I think the first thing that I noticed that was off was that she's almost impossible to contact when she's out sometimes. She'll say she wants to see a friend or to see some of her girls, and when she does, I can call or text for any reason, but she simply won't respond until whenever she responds. In some cases, she gets home before she even reads the message that I sent. This happens like a quarter of the time that she goes out, which is why I'm wondering if I might be jumping to conclusions. According to her, the day just gets really busy and she loses track of time and her phone. By the time things settle down, she always replies to me. Sometimes, it was that she would smell very mildly of a different perfume when I hugged her at the end of the day. Obviously, I know what she typically smells like because she sprays it before she leaves the house every day, and I smell it when she returns. Sometimes it feels like I can get a hint of something that is very different from the usual. In fact, the whole thing that caused me to write this was me getting a whiff of a different perfume in her car. But more on that later. I've also noticed times when she's texting someone and she's very careful to tilt the phone ever so slightly away from me so that I can't see what's going on. I've noticed sometimes when she's texting and smiling to herself, but then that could be anyone. So I try not to put too much weight on that observation. But my point is that there have been a lot of things that I've noticed from her that make me think that she might be cheating. Again, reading this myself, I see how I might just look like a very paranoid partner, but I've tried my best to slow down and think critically. I've even sat down to talk with her once. I obviously didn't mention all the things that I've mentioned here because that would make it obvious to her that I was accusing her of infidelity. However, I told her that I noticed some changes in her behavior and I wanted to know if she had anything that she wanted to tell me. I told her that I was concerned about our marriage and I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't done anything that would upset her or think less of me. I didn't expect much from the conversation and I only got her to assure me that there was no issue between the two of us. The things that I had noticed never changed though. I mentioned that I had smelled perfume in her car. There was a Saturday morning when I had decided to do some routine maintenance of her car, so I went into the passenger seat to pull out the car's manual from the glove compartment. When I entered, I had to lean close to the seat, and when I did, I smelled what was clearly male perfume. I hadn't entered the car in quite some time. It also wasn't anything that she had worn before. She wears feminine scents, floral to be exact. So when I smelled it, all the other signs that I had seen popped up in my head. I asked her about it pretty casually, and she claimed that she had given her coworker a ride the previous day since her car was in the shop. The thing is, that's something that can happen. I didn't want to instantly assume that she was lying to me. So, I just want to know what all of you think here. If you're like me, you've likely read hundreds of stories like mine. Do you think the things that I have noticed are serious enough for me to really dive deep and figure out whether she's cheating on me? Thank you. Edit. Hello everyone. I want to say I appreciate all the comments and reassurances. The general consensus is that her behavior is suspicious and that I need to go ahead and investigate further. And that's what I'm going to do. Living with someone you can't trust has turned out to be hell for me. And if I'm able to clear her name and prove that there's nothing suspicious going on, I'm sure that I'm going to feel so much better. I'll be sure to provide an update once I've done my findings and figured out what's going on. Update 1. Hello everyone. This is the update to the post that I made earlier about my wife who I suspected was cheating on me. I had no proof, but I saw strange signs like the smell of male perfume in her car, strange texting habits, and instances where she basically disappears off the grid until much later. After my post, it was heavily suggested that I investigate the situation in detail, so that's what I opted to do. I did think of checking her phone, but I wanted to be more thorough than that, so I went on Amazon and I bought a voice-activated voice recorder. It's a very small thing, and in a car, there's so many places that I could have chosen to stow it away. The recorder has the capacity for 100 hours of continuous recording, so I knew that the battery would be able to last for a pretty long time. I bought it and had it delivered to my workplace instead of my house, and I tested it out before I left work that day. I eventually went back home, and when she came, I told her that I wanted to check on her car, and I found a place to drop it that was very discreet. I work as a mechanic, so me choosing to check her car out isn't something that makes her particularly suspicious. Because of how the recorder that I got works, I have to retrieve it and then remove the memory card that's inside. Only then will I be able to know if it had recorded anything. On the very first day, I went to get it just to make sure that it worked, and thankfully it did. I was able to hear her talking on the phone, listening to the radio, and even singing along. I heard all of it from her trip to work and her trip back from work. There was nothing suspicious in the recording though. I had to keep it in her car about 2 weeks in total before I got what I was looking for. Before that point, I felt like the most awful person because I had been suspecting my wife of having an affair without proof. The proof I was looking for came though. When I retrieved the recorder this time around, I was able to see that the size of the files on it was a lot larger than on previous days. I had to listen to a lot of boring, non-eventful stuff, but eventually found what it was that I was looking for. I heard her telling someone to get in the car, and the person eventually did. Then there was a lot of small talk, with her asking how the person was at work that day. It was a man's voice that responded, and that alone made me feel very uneasy. Even at that point, I still felt that it was one of her coworkers that she was giving a ride, and I was able to cement that it was a coworker because they were gossiping about certain names and people in the office building that they worked in. However, it seemed like the other person didn't work in the same department as Steph did. She referred to him as Sebastian at a point. At a point, the car was silent for a bit, but I could hear its hum in the background. Then it sounded like the engine cut off. I heard a giggle and then, "You do this every time." That was what Sebastian said. He was laughing. "I'm shy, that's all." That was Steph. "You don't need to be shy anymore." From the tone of his voice, it was very clear what was going on. Flirting isn't even the right word for it. After that, I started to hear sounds. They were kissing, and I could hear both of them lightly moaning. After about 10 minutes of that, I could hear a lot of movement, and then what I was sure was the two of them having intercourse right there in the car that I had bought for her with my own money. Do you know how insane it is that I had to sit there and listen to the whole thing while trying to figure out what was going on? As soon as it was over, I trimmed the audio to the relevant part alone, and I haven't listened to it ever since. However, I've stored it on my phone and on my cloud storage. I also never put the recorder back in the car because there's no point in having more than what I have now. Even if I got another recording, I wouldn't have the guts to listen to that again. I think it is one of those things that you have to experience to fully understand, but I think it is only slightly worse than actually walking in on your wife cheating on you. If you think I have done anything about it, I haven't yet, but I'm so mad at her, I don't need advice for this part since there's no other way that this situation can go besides me divorcing her. That's going to happen, and I'm going to find such joy in it, but I also want to find another way to hurt her. I'll figure it out in due time. I promise that much. I won't let this Sebastian guy go free. I'll figure out who he is and make sure that he gets hurt too. There's no maybe I'm overreacting here. You didn't imagine it, you didn't misread signals, and you certainly didn't overthink. You caught reality in 4K surround sound, and it moaned. Update 2. If you haven't read my last update, it's best that you do so now so you can understand what I'm going to be talking about here. But after I was able to get proof that my wife had been cheating on me, I called a friend, got a recommendation for a divorce lawyer from him, and then I met up with the man to let him know the situation that I was in. I paid him right there because there was really no time to be wasted. If I could have been divorced from Steph that very day, that would have been the option that I would have taken, because I wanted absolutely nothing to do with her any longer. One thing I've learned from the stories here is to wait until the divorce papers are ready before you confront. Despite the fact that my love for her almost instantly changed into hate, I had to just hold myself back from letting her loose on her. It was hard, but somehow I managed to do it, and I waited until the papers were ready. I had her served on a weekend when we were both at home. I opened the door initially, and when I saw it was the process server, I called her, letting her know that the delivery was for her. She took it from the guy, and then she came back to the living room and absent-mindedly opened the envelope that she had been given. She was being distracted by the show that we were watching. When she saw what it was, she turned the stack of papers over to read the front and the back, and then she looked at me. "What?" was the only thing she said because she was so confused by what was going on. I asked her the same question, and she clarified by asking me, "What is this?" I asked her what it looked like, pointing out that they very clearly were divorce papers. She was still very confused because she said, "But they're not for me, are they?" I told her that they were. She asked what she had done and why I wasn't joking. She was so convinced that it was a joke, and that's funny to me. I think that if I had been cheating on her, assumed she had no idea, and then one day she pulled up with divorce papers, I'd assume that she had found out about what I had done. But it seems she refused to assume that was the reason for the divorce. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. The two of us sat there as it played out, and after the line where Sebastian told her that she didn't need to be shy anymore, she tried to stop the recording from playing, but I pulled it out of her reach so that I could keep it going. If I had to go through the discomfort of listening to it, she had to as well. It seemed like she hated listening to it even more than I did, because she kept begging that I stop. At one point, she tried to be aggressive, claiming that she'd walk out of the room, but I knew that she wasn't going to do that. When it finished, I asked her to explain herself. She just started weeping. I don't want to say that it was genuine crying, but it sounded like it. I didn't even need to pry. She started explaining that the guy was someone who worked in the same building as her. They had met in an elevator a few times and had gotten to chatter with one another. After some time, he started to flirt with her, and she admitted that because he was handsome, she liked the attention. She was always wearing her ring, according to her, and she told him that she was married too, but that didn't seem to change anything for him. Despite that, he kept flirting, claiming that he didn't care about me, and he wouldn't let me stop him from appreciating her beauty. She said that one day she had met him on the way out from work, and he asked her which direction she was going in. She told him, and he said that his house was on that way, so he asked her for a ride, which she gave him. She said that one day, out of the blue, he gave her directions, and those directions eventually took her to a little abandoned parking lot behind a warehouse building. She said that she even thought it was some kind of drug deal initially, but he reached over and kissed her. She said she tried to pull away, but before she knew it, she was kissing him back, and they eventually had sex. That ended up becoming a routine for them anytime he managed to catch her going home. She said she knew it was wrong, but it was convenient and it was exciting, and she couldn't help it. I asked her if those were the only times she had slept with him. I asked her about the nights when she'd be unreachable, but she insisted that she told the truth about those. I let her know that there wasn't any other option but for a divorce. She started crying again. I couldn't handle it. It was annoying me. I snapped at her to shut up, and I think that hurt her even more because I'm normally a very calm and passive person. I told her that she had broken my heart and I needed her out of the house within the hour before I ended up doing something crazy. She listened, and she was gone soon after. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't absolutely heartbroken. I absolutely loved this woman. I wish that she had loved me the same way. I think she regrets hurting me, but I know that she doesn't regret her affair. If she did, she wouldn't have kept it going for so long. She enjoyed every second of that. Update 3. I'm officially divorced from Steph, my ex-wife, and it is something that I am quite happy to announce. After she signed the paper, she reached out to me numerous times, telling me how sorry she was. And only one of those times did she seem to want to know if there was any chance of us getting back together. She was concerned about my well-being. She wanted to make sure I wasn't going to hurt myself and that I wasn't drinking. But after calming her nerves, I'd hang up. Anyway, the divorce was easy. We had everything settled in the negotiation phase because, according to her, she felt too guilty to start fighting over things in court. She let me keep the apartment that we were living in. She didn't want alimony, and she only asked that I pay so that she'd be able to rent an apartment for 3 months. I gave her that, and the car, only because it saved me the headache of having to sit in front of a judge. It was a very fair trade. She had been very agreeable, so I felt a little bad about letting her employer know that she had someone in the office that had been fraternizing. Her company has always been strict about that, and while I sent the recording I had as evidence, it still took a long time for the company to conclude its investigation. I don't know if the recording was the key piece of whether the investigation was just that good, but they eventually found her and Sebastian to be in violation of the company's policies, and both of them ended up being terminated, which made me happy. She called me after that happened, letting me know that she knew I was behind it, but she wasn't even angry. She just sounded sad. I'm sure that she realized that everything that was happening to her was a consequence of her actions, and I wasn't going to do anything to make her feel better. She cried over the phone, and once that started, I ended the call on her. I'm done with that woman, and I do not need her trying to come back into my life for any reason. Update 4. This will be my final update because I'm finally ready to move on from my ex-wife entirely. I've done everything that I have left in the tank, and I wish her the best from this point on. But I wish her the best from very far away from me. The last thing I wanted to do was show her how she had ruined her life and the things that she had. She'd always wanted to go to Banff in Canada, so I chose to do that, And when I did, I took hundreds of pictures, and I didn't hesitate to post. When she asked me if I was in Banff, and I told her yes, she didn't respond for a full day. I know it destroyed her to know that I was in one of her dream locations. A week after that, I went to the concert of a band that we both liked, and I just knew that hurt her too. Finally, I started talking to someone new. To be honest, it is still very casual. In fact, I'd say that she's just a friend right now. However, Steph didn't know that, and I know seeing me post a picture on my Instagram story with this woman really triggered her, because the next day she called me. She sounded like she had been crying. She said that she saw that I was living my best life and that she was happy for me. She told me that she wanted me to know that she was so sorry for how she hurt me. She said that I was a good person and she came in and hurt me really bad. She said that she was dealing with a lot of self-hate recently. Am I a bad person if I say that made me happy? She said she felt like apologizing to me would help, but she wasn't sure if it would. However, she just wanted to do the right thing and let me know that she was sorry. I let her know that I had listened to everything she had said, and I hung up and blocked her after that. There's nothing else I need from Steph at this point. I've given her a few things to hurt her, and now she's the one who's beating herself up. Like I said, I wish her the best in her struggle. But as for me, I'll move on to the next phase of my life as a better person. What? These aren't for me? No, Steph, joke's on you. They are. She cried, she apologized, she begged. And all you had to do was nod, hang up, and block her. Perfect, cold, merciless. She smelled like a stranger, hid her texts, ghosted you, and then acted confused when reality smacked her in the face. You weren't paranoid, you were patient, and patience gives you receipts. Also, posting bomb pics and living your life? Pure, delicious salt. Not petty, perfectly deserved self-preservation. Let her stew in the consequences of her choices while you collect sunsets and concert tickets. If you discovered beyond a shadow of a doubt that your partner had been cheating for months, would you confront them immediately, gather evidence first, or quietly plan your exit? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.